But did someone get it for you? Like a.
I got it from my grandfather.
Oh,
I don't know how old it is. Gotta be older.
yeah. Well, it looks good on you. Small class? Yeah. Yeah, that's how Laney works. On Thursday, before you actually decide to come to class, check your emails or Canvas for an announcement. I may have to go to the cemetery for cremation. So just in case, I'll send you an email the night before, like Wednesday. If you don't hear from me, it means we have class. If you do hear from me, it means we have class. I'm just kidding. So I'll let you know. Hello.
Hello.
William? How are you? Good, thank you. Yeah, well, that's one of the benefits of being from the Middle East, you know? Shave today, it grows tomorrow. Hello, Leslie. Sarah, you work? Hmm? Good for you. Leah, hello. Wanted? What are you reading? Oh, you have a journal. Any secrets in there? Huh? So I'm guessing you have a question? No. So any questions, any comments before we go home? Devonta and then EJ.
Where are we supposed to be taking this class? Because last week was like, we were supposed to walk away. I know you give us a good laugh.
A little laugh?
Huh?
Will you say a little what?
You give us a good laugh.
Oh, good laugh, yeah.
For those of us who won't say that we're a little confused about what we're supposed to be taking from the laugh, you maybe give us a good little follow cut. I love it. It's amazing. But I mean, just to reignite that passion for philosophy. What are we supposed to do?
Sorry, can you ask your question again?
What are we supposed to be taking
Ah.
from this class? It's philosophy. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I had an interview some years ago. It was about a philosophy position. And I said the same thing to the committee. I didn't get a call back. It's the wrong thing to say in an interview. Have you seen that movie, Nobody? Nobody 2 came out a few weeks ago.
Yeah, like look at old guy.
He's not old, he's like my age, he's young.
Okay. Okay.
So, somebody asks him, what are you doing here? And he says, I'm here with my family to create memories. And I think it's a very telling statement. You go out on a date with someone you don't really know, and your hope is to create enough memories, or memories that have some substance to them, so that when they're walking home alone, they think about you. Behind closed doors, companies spend millions, if not billions of dollars creating advertisement that suspends, hopefully, your judgments and your rationality, so that emotionally you can get yourself in a car and go to somewhere and buy the item that was advertised to you. I'm not really quite sure what anyone can get from anything. You go to job interviews and you realize that there are 20, 30 people fighting for the same position, and your task is to go in there, answer the questions as best as you can, and when you leave, the committee, they think about you, and that way of thinking about you hopefully will encourage them, inspire them to call you for the second interview, and then hopefully to meet the president, and hopefully to get the position, or at least be offered. I think the point of everything really is, if you can find a space where there is an ounce of excitement, inspiration, and everything taps into your emotional center, not so much the thinking center, because that kind of gets filtered by history, by biases, judgments, all those things, by your emotional center that paralyzes your thinking apparatus. And you walk away from the class and your mind is a little cloudy because you're a little confused as to what the conversation was. You came to class believing in God, now you're not sure, but the very fact that you now have doubts begin to occupy a good amount of space inside you. So instead of going and hanging out with your friends, you go to the library, check out some books about God, religion, and then you go home and you hang out with your friends, and they want to, say stupid jokes and laugh about things that are just really not funny. But you change the direction of your gathering, and all of a sudden it's all serious because for some strange reason you've been pushed into seriousness. I'm not sure if the end result is you'll find out if there's a God or not, but what it has done for you is you've spent most of your life reading books and thinking thoughts. This class won't do much in regards to getting you to a conclusion that you can be certain about. When I met Abi, she was only 18. I was teaching this ridiculous class called Mysticism of the Self. And this was in, I think, 90-some. For about a year or so, then she disappeared. 40 years later, maybe not 40, but 20 years later. She finds that I'm here at Laney, she comes by and she just comes and sits. And it's all because of a certain memory. Will she get any answers about life, meaning of life, who she is, what she is? Probably not. But can she probably, stay here and spend her time a bit more meaningfully? Maybe. And maybe that's the only goal available to us, really. Find yourself an environment that can speak to you. Why don't you end? was going to say something, but yeah. So that's really just it. Yeah.
Okay.
Medicine.
If you started a cult, what would you name?
A cult?
Yeah, if you had a cult, what would you name?
I did have a cult.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you guys,
I'm sorry?
what do you guys like do? Tell me about it.
Orgy of ideas.
Okay.
Orgy of ideas.
Oh,
Not just orgy, but orgy of ideas. And then, of course, it led to other things. Write that down.
okay.
If I had a cult, what's your question? I'm sorry?
If you had a cult,
Good morning.
if you had a cult, what would be the theme of the cult?
Madison, have you ever liked someone?
A little bit, yeah.
No, I mean really like them. I mean like love them. Like you're on the toilet bowl pooping and that's the person is all you think about.
I've been in the bathroom.
What's that again?
I've been in the bathroom when they were pooping, so yeah.
That's disgusting. That's too much love. Yeah, that's not love. That's stupid. Now, so don't do that ever again, okay? Now, now, so here's the thing you need to know about how cults begin and how they play out and how they eventually fizzle out. Write it down, it's very important. Yeah, since you have your pen handy. Every cult has at its head a person we call the Buddha. But it's not just someone who comes to class, hello, and just talks. They have something and we don't really know what they have. And not everyone can see what they have. There's a good chance that out of maybe 100 people, maybe 10 are attracted to the sort of charisma, the sort of magnetism that those particular folks have. And so those who are not attracted will eventually visit those who are attracted and ask them, why are you guys attracted to his or her philosophy of life? And the truth is they can't convince them, they can't describe, define, but they're attracted nevertheless. So that's the first thing about cults. It is initiated or created by someone with a mysterious element that lives inside them. Not everyone, but some people become attracted to that particular mystery. Become selective. The people who find themselves attracted, they make up this thing called Sangha, or a community. 5, 10, 15 people who enjoy what they see, who enjoy what they hear. And there's a reason for that. You know, Madison, I don't know you. But like many of us in this class, you have a set of stories inside you. And you don't share those stories with just anyone. There's a good chance you don't even know those stories full well yourself. All you know is that those stories have created inside you a good amount of emotions. Sometimes you wake up in a bad mood, some days you wake up in a pissy mood. Some days you just walk around angry because the stories are unresolved. And just in case you find yourself intimate with another human being, I mean emotionally, you try to explain, who and what you are on the inside, and you realize that you don't have the language for it. And so you remain alienated. You remain strange, not only from the world that lives inside you, but also from interacting with another human being. So you live in a very, very, very lonely world. then something magical happens. EJ gives you a book, and you look at the book, and the title sounds interesting, so you open to the first chapter, and you read some paragraphs, and you realize ink on paper has the power to speak about your emotions. Emotions you've been wanting to describe for the longest time in your life, but you've never been able to, because you were in that particular realm uneducated. But all of a sudden, this book gives language to all the things you felt most of your life. And so what you do is you read the book cover to cover, and you begin to fall in love with the author. So you go to Amazon, and you buy every book that author has written. Let's call him Rollo May, the guy who wrote this book, A Cry for Myth. So one of the things you need to understand about cults is the following. The person who is the leader, the CEO of this organization, finds himself or herself a group of people who yearn, who hunger for something. Some are counterfeit, and some are true. Some people simply like to join something, and some people, it's not so much liking to join, they are really longing, yearning, questing after something they can't really describe. But the moment this person opens his or her mouth, all of a sudden they realize that the way he or she speaks lives their emotions. And sometimes they may have nothing on the inside, except, I suppose, some fantasies that have remained dormant, unrealized. And that person has the power to just wake him up. Sangha, community. Not for everyone, just a few people. Yeah. The cult leader also has another element. It's called Dharma. Teachings. And those teachings are only really heard by the community. In that community of maybe 20, only 5 maybe understand. Of the 5 that understands, only 1 can apply. So even in a cult of 20, 30, 100, 1,000 people, only a handful understand. And only 1 or 2 can actually apply. If that's a little too, I suppose, esoteric, too complex, I'll give it to you in a different way. Yeah, I'm going to give it to you in a way that is easier for me even. So, Esmeralda. So, you and your mom have been going at it for, say, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And the only thing you've given her is frustration. Your mom comes to realize that she can't reach you. And every time she asks you a question, you just turn away and walk the other way. At a certain point, she comes in and she says, you have an appointment today. You say, with who? And remember, we don't really know what's going on with you. She doesn't know what's going on with you. But she's paralyzed. She doesn't know what to do. So she gets an appointment with a therapist. You walk into the room and you look at the therapist. And something about you wakes up, and that's your intuition, your senses, your feelings. You can immediately gravitate towards a therapist, you feel comfortable, or you just say, yuck. That's a mystery I can't describe. People just have spidey senses. You know, you gravitate towards someone because for some unknown reason, you don't like them for some unknown reason. Now, the moment you walk in and you have a certain feeling, that feeling gets tested by the interaction. This particular therapist either will work for you or not work for you. Should it work for you, it means a couple of things. First, you just feel at ease. You feel comfortable. And it hasn't gotten really serious at all, but you just feel comfortable. Then he or she asks you a few questions, and then you pay attention to see what their body language is like, how they're listening to you, the sort of questions they're asking, if they're pushy, if they're aggressive, you know. And you realize that you're getting to be a bit more comfortable. And this goes on for a few weeks. And now you're really comfortable. And in fact, when your mom asks you, how was your session? You keep talking about it endlessly. You know what has happened? You have a cult leader now. You have a therapist on whom you depend for wisdom, for comfort, for solace. And so after 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks, kind of like Matt Damon in the movie, what's that movie called? Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Robin Williams, Good Will Hunting. At a certain point, the therapist looks at you and you break down. And this is after like some time. And all the stuff that lives inside you now comes out, and you don't know what the hell is happening to you. But your therapist, having spent some time with you, knows your inner life a little bit, begins to put your emotions into language. And for the first time, Madison, who has been a bundle of confused emotions, now has words. And then your therapist says, when you go home, do A, B, C, D. Just in case a negative emotion comes up, do E, F, G, H. But those are the set of teachings that you have to follow. That's what it is.
Okay, is that the end of it?
Yeah.
Okay. Into my initial question, in this process, what is the theme of your goal?
I think it's a question that Devonta asked. You know, everything in life is a shot in the dark. It's a shot in the dark. You know, you have a conversation with a friend because you want to get across certain things, shot in the dark. You raise your hand, you ask a question, a shot in the dark that I may understand. I say something in hopes of you understand. You write an essay in hopes of getting an A, it's a shot in the dark, you know. There is no theme. It's just you come to class, you say a couple of things, and you go home.
So are you in your cult right now?
It's a classroom, it's not a cult. You're not a student. You just enrolled in a class, like a history class, or a geography class, or a chemistry class. You're not a student. You just enrolled in a class. You don't write essays because you're interested in the subject matter. You're here for a grade. You know, it's like someone goes out on a date in hopes of getting, you know, having a good time, like getting sex. And the person on the opposite side keeps saying, well, are we going to get married? No, I'm just here for sex. You're just here for a grade. It takes a long, long time for people to become students. And having said that, let me tell you a story. So there is EJ and there is Matthew. You know who they are, right? That's EJ right there.
Which one?
Right there.
Okay.
And that's Matthew / William.
Okay. Oh.
Okay?
Okay. Which one?
Matthew is right there.
Okay. Okay. You said William / William. Sorry.
Yeah, his middle name is William.
Oh, okay.
So EJ calls Matthew and says, there's a party. Let's go to this party. Heavy drinking, drugs, sex. I'll pick you up tomorrow. And Matthew says, fine, let's do it. So he walks to his house, and they're walking towards this space where this party is. As they're walking, they hear someone screaming. Now, EJ doesn't care for people screaming, but for some strange reason, it fancies Matthew. Matthew says, let's go see what the hell is going on in this house. The door happens to be slightly cracked. He puts his head in, and there is Louis. I mean, he looks like the screaming kind, right? And he is screaming, ranting, and being very, very animated. And for some strange reason, Matthew enjoys what he's hearing, and he doesn't know why. EJ keeps harassing him. Let's go. It's getting late. Hashish, cocaine, LSD, LCD, all those things. And Matthew says, yeah, just 5 minutes, 5 more minutes. Now, EJ is getting frustrated because, other people are finishing up all the drugs and drinking all the alcohol. So EJ continues his harassment, and Matthew keeps telling him, just wait, another 5 minutes, 5 minutes. At a certain point, Matthew looks at EJ and says to him, you go, I'll follow in about 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. I'll come over there and meet you. Now, what's interesting about this is that you have two very, very good friends. They've been friends ever since they were kids. They're now in their 20s or 30s, right? And they both seek pleasure at this party. And they're walking. And this door is cracked. And remember what friendship is. It means that a good amount of who you are relates to a good amount of who the other person is. You guys have a lot of things in common. EJ and Matthew.
Oh, okay.
And so, it's good tea. Oh. There. Now, the first question that you should ask is, why is it that two people who have been so close for the past 20 years, one would find pleasure in listening to Socrates, i.e. Louis, and the other doesn't? It doesn't make any sense. Why is it that Matthew listens to a stranger and is attracted, and EJ, who happens to be his best friend, listens, doesn't find an ounce of interest in what he hears? And that's the first mystery that you need to think about. Why are people interested in things? How does it happen? When does it happen? To whom does it happen? And the truth is, we don't know. It has nothing to do with age. It's interesting because in my yesterday's class, there is a young woman, her age is 16. And she has decided to sit in all of my classes. I don't know why. 20-year-olds don't do it, 30-year-olds don't do it, 50-year-olds don't do it, and yet the 16-year-old does, and the question is why. And that's not a mystery I'm willing to kind of go into and figure out. It's not my business. Okay. Now, listening to Louis is difficult because he's like a Socrates. He doesn't ask simple things. He doesn't talk about superficial things. And that should be another thing you should think about. Socrates creates pain, and for some strange reason, Matthew enjoys it. The examined life, that's not fun. What does it mean to be black? What does it mean to be American? What does it mean to be a student? What does it mean to be in love? What does it mean to be young? What does it mean to be stupid? What does it mean to be intelligent? These are questions that have no real answers. And yet Matthew likes it. And the second thing or third thing you need to consider is the following. All of a sudden, the definition of pleasure begins to change. For EJ, drugs, smoking, sexing, that is how he defines pleasure. All of a sudden, for Matthew, everything has changed. He likes drugs and alcohol, but for some strange reason, he finds Socrates a bit more enjoyable. 10 minutes pass by, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. EJ here keeps texting him. The hell are you, man? I'll be there. Don't worry, I'll be there. Look at Louis. He's got a big mouth. He keeps talking and talking and talking. He's got this infinite amount of energy to him. And there is Matthew standing by the door listening to Louis for the next 7, 8, 9, 10 hours. 10 hours! And do you know why Socrates can talk for 10 straight hours? It's called eudaimonia. He's possessed by the demon of happiness. For some strange reason, Matthew likes it. So when the talk is over, but Matthew goes to Louis and says, amazing, amazing. And I see all these people sitting and listening to you. Is there a way I can be your student? And Louis looks at Matthew and says, of course. Your first task is to clean the toilets. Toilets? I want to be inspired. I want to grow wings and fly to the sun, and you want me to clean the toilets? Well, if you want to be a student, you got to clean the toilets. Now, you know, whenever you want to give your time, your energy, your life to another human being, you got to make sacrifices. You being in this class, you got to make a sacrifice. You can be in bed. You can be in this class. But you're not here in this class because you like me. You like the grade because it gets you closer to a 4-year school. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now you know why you're not a student. Now,
Not your student.
good. And so Matthew says, I came to learn philosophy, and this guy wants me to clean the toilet bowls. That doesn't make any sense. See, the problem with Matthew is that he assumes that he is ready to receive philosophy just because he's interested. But Louis knows that interest doesn't do anything. You could be interested in another human being, but that doesn't mean that you have the capacity to be in a committed relationship. What it just means is, kind of like most of the people in this room. You have the ability to ask questions, but it doesn't mean you understand your own question. And just in case you do understand your question, it doesn't mean you have the capacity to understand the answer. You just know how to ask questions without really understanding what you're asking. Socrates is looking not for someone who can so easily be inspired, but whether or not they can be in a committed relationship. Do you like Socrates enough to clean toilet bowls for a while? If the answer is no, well, you can't be Socrates' students. And that's another thing you need to understand. The better the teacher, the more the demands, the more difficult the demands. If you go out with an 18-year-old, they're not going to ask very much of you. They're 18. They're a punk. If you go out with a 40-year-old, it's a different story. What?
You're talking about a man and female relationship? The woman is 18 or the man is 18? It makes a difference. 18-year-olds.
The more mature, the more difficult.
But I can ask my
How old am I in this situation?
I'm sorry?
How old am I in this situation?
How old what?
How old am I dating this 18-year-old, 20-year-old in this situation?
All I was saying is that the more mature your companion, the more difficult it's going to be for you. because you have to rise. I'm sorry?
What's a 40-year-old, 40-year-old?
40-40?
Yeah, 40.
It's a hell. I mean, all relationships are just hellish, but that's besides the point. Ask Louis, he'll tell you. Now, so Matthew looks at Socrates and says, you know, okay, I'll clean the toilet bowls. So for the next 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months, that's what Matthew does. He gets up at 6, goes to the basement, cleans the toilet bowls, comes up for 10 minutes, listens to Louis, gets a bit more inspired, and goes back and cleans more toilet bowls. Hello. After 6, 7, 8 months, Matthew goes to Socrates or Louis and says, is it time for me to be in the lecture hall to listen to you? Not yet. It's time for you to wash the dishes in the kitchen. I'm here for philosophy, man. I'm not here to be your slave or to be a servant. I want to do philosophy. No, wash the dishes. Another 6 months washing the dishes. Another 6 months cleaning the floors. Another 6 months cooking. Another 6 months serving what you've cooked to the people at the gathering. And then eventually he's permitted to sit in the main hall, but he sits way, way, way in the back. Socrates talks, but Matthew is way in the back. He can't even hear what Socrates is saying, but he sits nevertheless. And that's called commitment. That's called devotion. At a certain point, Socrates looks at him and says, now you can sit in the middle. He can hear, 5 out of the 10 words spoken by Socrates. Then he is invited to sit at the very front. Do you know why? He has ears now. Those ears can hear. And then at a certain point, Socrates looks at him and says, who are you? I don't know who you are. You don't know who I am. I've been your slave for the past 5 years. What do you mean you don't know who I am? I have no idea who you are. And he kicks him out of the lecture hall. Do you know what happens when you spend your entire life serving another human being and the end result is you getting kicked out for no good reason? That's the ultimate betrayal. You feel that Socrates has betrayed you. And you try to talk to his people, no one knows who you are. You talk to city people, no one knows who they are. You are. So you know what Matthew does? He goes to the cemetery on Piedmont. If the living can't understand me, maybe the dead will. And there he just weeps like an infant, something that Louis will experience soon. And out of exhaustion, he just passes out. And then he has a dream. And he wakes up and he's enlightened. The point I'm trying to make is that's how students are made. Anyone else? EJ. Oh, wait. Yeah.
But when relationships fail, as most of them do, is it due to is it due to the people having grown apart, or was the seed that destroyed the relationship always there, and it just takes a while for it to reveal itself?
So let me give you a story. How old are you, EJ?
I'll be 19 next month.
Jeez, you're just a baby. Let's say you're 19. And let's say I'm 35. Okay. You're American, 19-year-old American. I'm a 40-year-old Persian. But there is something universal about human beings, is that you look at someone and you feel attracted to them. Okay? Culture has no play here just yet. The way you think about life, the way I think about life, your age, my age, none of those things really matter. All we know is that both of us are being guided by this force called attraction. Okay? Now, the first few weeks or months of the relationship is really quite irrelevant, in the sense that we're not really looking for meaning, we're not looking for substance. I'm trying to catch you and you're trying to catch me. Okay? I mean, we're trying to some extent enslave one another, so that I can think about you all the time and you can think about me all the time. Right? And the way it works is, it starts with, I don't know why people write things down. You get attracted, desire is born. With the new desire, a new poverty is born. Poverty is like a hunger. As you play with this poverty, this hunger, it grows more and more and more and more. And then you get a sense of pursuit. I want to pursue him. I want to pursue her. Okay? Fantasies begin to grow. Your poverty increases. You become a political animal. Find ways to capture the other human being or the other thing. And then interest happens, and then infatuation happens, and then obsession happens, and then love happens. And by the time you and I reach the stages of love, you have occupied 95% of me, and I've occupied 95% of you. Okay? And then when you and I get together, there is really no real reason for you and I to have conversations. Love has its own language, which is for the most part silent. Okay? Are you done? I don't have very much experience in this, but let me tell you how it usually works. You meet someone at a coffee shop and you're fully clothed. You have clothes on you, right? It takes you a while to be invited to their house. Eventually you do. Then you sit close to them, watching a movie. Then after a few weeks, you sit closer to them, where your shoulders touch. Then the naked hands begin to touch. Then everything gets romanticized. Then you guys begin to fool around a little, still with your clothes on, right? Then you use your body to sense the other person's body. So your feelings for them grow. For the first time now, love has a physical container where you can express this particular emotion that lives inside you. Depending on how mature you are, how much you understand physical interaction, i.e. sex and all that stuff, at a certain point, both of you are completely naked in the bedroom. You're still not very comfortable having the lights on, so the lights are off. After the two of you have grown a bit more comfortable, now you can walk around with a towel around you. And after a while, even a towel is not needed because you're very, very comfortable. And there's a reason why you're comfortable. Love, your love for another and their love for you removes all judgments. It doesn't matter how your body looks. It doesn't matter how much you weigh, how skinny you are, what deformities you have. None of those things matter. And that's one of the beauties of this particular emotion called love. It removes all things that you find deformed about you. At a certain point, something really interesting happens. You've become so comfortable that as you walk, you begin to fart. So comfortable that this particular emotion called love is no longer as intense as it used to be. Now, you look at your companion and you say, wow, I didn't know, his body is quite flabby, And now judgments and observations set in. At what point do you think I am going to unpack my history? And at what point do you think you're going to unpack your history? At what point do you think while we both unpack our histories and biases and judgments and worldviews, at what stage do you think conflict is going to grow? At what point do you think you and I are going to sit and talk about our conflicts? At what point do you think you and I are going to understand the reason for our conflicts? And as you unpack what lives inside you, and as she unpacks what lives inside her, you realize this intimacy you once had is now suffering a good amount of cracks in it. Now, there is another aspect to it, which is, I think it was best put by Jean-Paul Sartre. When you're born as a human being, you have a couple of siblings that are born with you. You may not be aware, but they're right there beside you. And the most important sibling of yours is called boredom. At a certain point, you're going to walk into the relationship after a couple of months or a couple of years and realize you just don't feel anything for your companion. You don't feel anything for your life. He or she doesn't inspire you, you don't inspire them, and their presence or absence, for the most part, irrelevant. And because most of us don't really understand boredom, what time does to all of us in this classroom, you begin to use their history, their culture as an excuse to get out. Now, that's just you and your companion. Let me say a couple of things about what's going to happen to our good friend over there. I don't know how he met his companion, somehow. As a man, he seeks attention, and a good amount was given to him. When he goes home, lunch is not going to be ready. You know what she's going to say? We need to go to Kaiser. But I am Louis. Louis the 7th, Louis the 10th. I am King Louis. You used to give me all this attention. Give more to me. I have a child. Shut the fuck up. Kaiser now. He finds himself to be a bit irrelevant. But they still talk. But most of the conversation is about, pregnancy, delivery, all that stuff, insurance and all that. Then comes out the child. This woman will have no time for him and his antics and his stupidity. The only thing she cares about is the child. That's going to frustrate him. He's going to feel invisible, and that's going to bother him. And depending on his maturity, he'll either just crack or he'll man up. He'll begin to understand. And the other thing you need to understand is he's a man, he's got needs. I'm not talking about sexual needs. Just sitting on the sofa watching a good movie with your wife or your companion. That's not going to happen for a long, long time. He loves rest. He loves sleep. That's not going to be for him for the next few years. He thinks he's making a lot of money. That's not true. Kids are profoundly expensive. And you know what his wife is going to do? He's going to make him feel bad for being so poor. When you add all these elements to him, to the relationship, you realize this man is walking into an avalanche of garbage or just responsibilities. His back is going to bend. His knees are going to break. He won't like his life for a long, long time until years pass. He's going to look at his kid and he say, you know what? We did good. But you know when that is? When he is like 70 and his kid is 45, accomplished. When you add all that stuff together, you realize most of what happens to us in relationships are just things that we have to carry. We don't want to, but we have to. Some of us have the capacity, most of us don't. Now, there is another element that we haven't really talked about. The fact that the American culture creates lonely, depressed, alienated people. We don't belong to a family. You have nobody. And you walk into a relationship all alone, feeling sad and depressed and lonely. And this other person is supposed to either father you or mother you for the next few years. Some people are lucky enough to make it through. Some can't. No one knows. There is another aspect, EJ. You know, marriage is like getting a PhD. You know how long it takes you to get a PhD? About 10 years. And that's going to school every day and dealing with nonsense every day. If you want to stay married, you got to go through nonsense for about 10, 15, 20 years. It's never ending. But you just can't drop out. And it's something that our parents knew, or maybe grandparents, how to be patient, how to know that life is full of shit and you just got to suck it up. You know, unlike us, we have no patience for any of that. Add to the fact that we are far too privileged. Anyone else?
So what's the benefit of a relationship? It just sounded like horrible to me.
No. I mean, look, relationships are like bathrooms. You know, you're not going to spend your entire life in the bathroom, but you need to make sure that your one bedroom or your studio or a house, it has a few bathrooms because there are going to be times you're going to need it. Okay? So you have to look at another human being as a vehicle in which you can dump your stuff in. Sometimes you're just lonely. You want someone to sit next to you and watch a good movie. Sometimes you want to be in the kitchen and cook together. Sometimes you want to go to Costco together. And sometimes you just need to be left alone. Relationships very much are like a Costco. You know, every aisle offers you a different thing. One aisle just offers you shit, plain shit. Another aisle is just bouquet of flowers. Another aisle, just misery. The next aisle is fun and happiness. You know, and the problem is you just wake up one morning and you say, you know what? I happen to be in the shitty aisle and everything about this aisle smells. I want out. 10 minutes later, the aisle where there are flowers. And you have no idea which way to go. Now, the trick is to survive the first 50 years of hurricane. And by the time you're like 60, you're old, you're senile, you know, your wife has nothing to tell you. You have nothing to tell your wife. Both of you just sit and watch TV together. And you walk every day. You know, she's over there and you're over there. You know, and then, you know, it's fun because in your 70s, you go to Kaiser, you know, buy her a cane. She buys you a cane. And then you guys go to Costco and you look for a casket with like, you know, Bluetooth and air conditioning. Look, it's like this class. Sometimes you come to this class and it's boring. Sometimes you come to this class and it's great. Sometimes you come to this class and it smells bad. That's how relationships are. Ali? What? I used to. That was in Sacramento, Sunrise and Greenback. Say again? Once in a blue moon, when I want to get close to the dead, yes. Why? I think all of us in this class from time to time, imagine you watched a really, really good movie. And when I say that, I mean the following. That you go home, you're tired of just the busy work of life, and you just want to be inspired. So you watch this movie called Meet Joe Black with Anthony Hopkins and Brad Pitt, or Remember the Titans. Okay? They're great movies. And as you sit and watch 2-3 hours of the show, you realize that you're no longer thinking in the tables and chairs of life. Something about the movie just gives you wings, and you don't know why or how, but it does. You're inspired, you're excited, and the movie forces you to go out there and maybe make a sandwich for a homeless person and give it to him. Okay? And then, of course, the experience is forgotten. That's what happens to all of us. And then a month passes by and you're walking home and all of a sudden something very strange happens to you. You say to yourself, man, I just got lost in the busyness of life. I just missed this other part of me that went into the kitchen, made the sandwich, and went out and gave it to this homeless person. I want that part back. How do I get it back? It's kind of like you get into a relationship and it's full of love. And then it goes away, you guys break up and you say, I miss that part of me that writes poetry and buys flowers and does this and does that. And I think all of us have different needs at different times. There are moments where you realize that you've become too cerebral. You just think too much and you think about all the stupid things, how I should lecture in my class, what things I should do differently, audiobooks, the books you read. And you say, you know what, I do all this stuff, but what's missing is I want to feel. And I just don't want to feel like superficially. I want to feel deeply to the point where I'm in chaos. I miss that. I miss the confusion. I miss the hurricane that lives inside that brings me to life, where I feel my own existence. And you try different things. You watch movies, it doesn't work. You go for a walk, it doesn't work. You go to the forest, it doesn't work. And you say, you know what, maybe I should go wash a corpse. And then you do. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It's kind of like Wheel of Fortune. You spin life and it gets to a number, you either like it or you don't like it. It's like people asking questions in my classes. I hear some questions and say, nah, I'm not really interested. How's your mom? Tell us hi. Devante.
Is there going to be a big
final paper? Yeah.
Because you don't want to say no's. Just again, I feel like nobody's going to say it, so I'm just going to ask. Right?
Look, the stuff that you got to do is on Canvas. There you go. Yeah, Leah.
A lot of modern or American mental health treatments are about fixing the brain. But I wonder, is there a way to work with your brain and not against it?
There are a couple of things. Yeah. First of all, your family can't help you. That's number one, because your family is too close. And I don't mean your family can give you physical support, and that physical support can sometimes generate emotional support. That's fine. But because your family is far too close, your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad, you don't respect them like that, you don't fear them like that, you don't take them that seriously. So whatever life lesson they give you, you're not going to take it seriously. You will understand what your parents have told you when you yourself become a parent and you realize that, or when you seek therapy after 20, 30 years of therapy sessions, you realize that what your therapist is telling you is what your parents have told you for the longest time. But because of the closeness, of the intimacy of the relationship, you just can't hear what they're saying. That's number one. Number two, just in case someone has some mental issues, the first thing that needs to happen is someone needs to bring it to their awareness. Now, one of the things that lives inside us is the fact of denial. I am not sick. I am not suffering from this. You got to be beaten down over and over and over again until you accept the fact that there is, in fact, some serious issues about you. Okay? It has to be made aware to you that this is your issue. Then you have to combat with this thing called forgetfulness. We are lazy, we don't like pain, we'll do whatever we possibly can to sabotage our awareness. You don't need to go back 2,000 years to crucify or put to cross Jesus Christ. We do it every single day, every goddamn moment. All of us in this class have awareness, but it's far too painful, and it's far too serious, and it's far too burdensome. So what do? We push it underground. Okay. By the time you're diagnosed with a mental illness of sorts, it means you've already developed certain habits, which means that there is you. And remember, habits are like what Charles Darwin had argued. Every living organism has an intelligence in it. That intelligence has wisdom in it. That wisdom has only one task: understand its own anatomy, understand the physical forces outside, and make sure it knows how to best survive, to live on. If you have cancer, it is a living organism. Now, there's a part of me that says, no, I want to get rid of it. But cancer cells themselves, they will desire to survive. They will do whatever they can. Okay? So that's the thing you need to understand. Illnesses, whatever they may be, they are living organisms that will fight to live. Okay. Now, we easily give into habits because we don't recognize them. And by the time you do recognize the habits, as they become obstacles to your own healing, you realize you have no will and you have no tools to fight them. And that leads to depression. Okay? So, awareness, habits, and then there are these moments where you have to exercise mindfulness. And by that I mean the following. It's very, very difficult to always be mindful of the sickness that lives inside you. It's too much work. And it will not allow you to live your life. I mean, imagine, let's say you have this anger right now. For the past hour and a half, that anger will not allow you to listen to anything that anyone says in this class. Okay? Now, when we talk about mindfulness, it means you recognizing the fact that there are these obstacles, okay? And you're very mindful, aware, now there's an obstacle, right there, not allowing to listen. There is this exercise called stop. You know, like you're going 90 miles an hour, and you look up, the light is green. You look up the next second, the light is orange. You slow down, but you still think you can pass. And all of a sudden, the light turns red, and you hit the brakes, because if you don't, a ticket is going to be mailed to you for $1,000. Okay? A part of you, and you can't do it on your own. You need someone from the outside. And you need a cult, going back to Madison's conversation. You need a cult that that's my nephew from Cleveland. Anyways.
It's important. It sounds important.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's important. Yeah. Hold on.